Okay, thank you, Joy. Thank you, Mr. Ridwan, for joining us back. Um, hello,
Right.
Mr. Ridwan.
Yep.
Yes, all right. So, I sent a message to the group. I can see Joy has already joined back in. I'll still be following up with the other mentees that were on the call to make sure they rejoin. So, thank you, sir, for joining us back.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you too. So let me know if I can, when I can proceed.
Sir, you can proceed.
Okay, great. Okay, I think I was talking about the different legal and regulatory issues or considerations that we need to look at, and I was talking a bit about, yeah, I think we can relate that to securities law in terms of the SEC rules for the issuance and exchange and custody of digital assets. So just to manage our time, I'll just move to other things that you should, or that the mentees should consider as well when they're looking at these space. And quickly, I mean, maybe I should just limit it for now to the Nigerian regulatory space framework. So and that's linked to the that Chinedum, seems your mic is.
Don't climb that way. Come down from there.
Hello, Chinedum, could you mute your mic, please?
Mr. Chinedum, your mic is unmuted.
Can you see if you can mute it at your hand? I'm not sure you can hear us.
I'm trying to. It's not responding from my end. So, Mr.
Okay.
Chinedum, if you can, please help us mute your mic.
Yeah, don't bother. Let me just continue. I think the noise has subsided. Okay. So yeah. Anyone saying something? Okay, great. So yeah, so let's just talk about the Nigerian regulatory space. But as I always say, please don't limit yourself to that to the space. There are some things I was reading recently in MICA, that's the EU law regulating virtual digital assets generally in the EU. So that's MICA stands for markets in crypto assets. Yes, I believe so. So it's very important. I mean, that space is quite interesting. It's, just as usual. I don't know. I mean, the EU is always, I mean, especially in terms of regulatory mechanisms, their regulations are always, that's when you talk about the EU GDPR, you talk about the AI Acts, and there are a lot of other regulations like that, like the DSA, the DMA. So that's the Digital Market Act and the likes. So, or even the liabilities are. So there's a lot of things that you can actually look at there. And the reason I'm saying you should look at other jurisdictions is really to learn from how they're doing things, and not especially in terms of, not only in terms of the regulation, how the regulation applies to the markets over there, but especially in terms of how lawyers are navigating regulatory compliance, in terms of how they are, how some companies as well are, are complying with the regulation there. And another thing is that, I mean, generally, that should even be the first, because most jurisdictions always, they often build their regulatory regulation around the EU regulations as well, because sometimes it's it's always take the forefront in terms of leading other jurisdictions in terms of how to regulate specific sectors. And but of course, when you look at how organizations are sometimes, not all the time, because we have strong regulatory enforcements or environments in the US as well. So you really need to look at how products, how companies are also, how they are complying with regulations over there as well. Of course, when you talk about we don't really have a specific, of course, the FTC is doing a lot, but we don't really have a specific regulation in the US that's, I mean, should I say, an industry specific regulation that's really applies to the blockchain or to, use cases of blockchain. I mean, in terms of cryptocurrencies or talk of NFTs. So just like in Nigeria as well, we don't really have a specific law that relates to NFT, even though we have the SEC rules that I mentioned. When I talk about SEC, I'm not really talking about the major SEC regulations. I'm talking about these digital assets regulation. And we really need to look at that. And I'm also going to talk about, maybe I should even really talk about that now. Taxation is really important. It's one of the things that we might overlook, or most players might overlook, that maybe blockchain is not taxable, but it is really. And for many economic reasons. And maybe that's one of the reasons CBN wasn't really. Anyways, there are lots of reasons that they said. Mainly, it was they claimed it's due to fraud, but of course, there may be lots of other reasons that a regulator might be afraid of, so to say, or might not be welcoming of a particular of blockchain. Don't let me just put it generally like that. But of course, when we look at different jurisdictions, we see how they are kind of reacting to this particular innovation or technology. And of course, because there are some economic reasons, you really need to regulate that field. And that is why we have I think the Finance Act regulating how that's saying that digital assets are also taxable. And there are ways you can actually calculate that tax. So when you're selling digital assets, then you have to pay tax on that. But then the question is now that is it, because that's another debate, a global debate in terms of if NFTs can be regarded as properties or securities. So, I mean, there are ways to break this down. I'm just saying all these things so as you can also, look further into all these discussions. And the reason they are quite important is because they can, I mean, I'm a big advocate of lawyers building companies with founders. I mean, there are many ways, especially even including IP. There are different ways your advice could really build as a company, could really could really inform founders of how to structure their companies. So they might be looking at a particular way that this is how we want to build out, this is the technology we want to deploy, but due to regulatory reasons, because regulation is one of the reasons that a company might die. You get so I mean regulation itself in terms of, I mean, if we look at the blockchain it's a very good example, case in point, where when we were starting from the beginning. I mean, when we look at the CBN reaction to the community, I know that a lot of people would want to. I still have the particular issue with this. I will even relate it to the moment. So I mean, recently. So, but what I'm saying is that when people were trying to start from the beginning and from scratch, when blockchain was still very hot, I mean, in terms of cryptocurrencies, things have really died down. I mean, compared to how it was initially. Of course, maybe we'll see that growth, spring up again soon, hopefully. But you will see that I know many people actually, because I participated in lots of hackathons building products on the blockchain using the different standards. Like let me just quickly mention that when you're looking at the standard for NFTs, they call it ERC 721 for the Ethereum, blockchain and the one for cryptocurrencies or tokens generally. There might be a difference. Let me just put it that way. There's actually difference between cryptocurrencies and tokens. You can look that up because when we're talking about different tokens, there are different types of tokens. I've mentioned utility tokens a lot. I've mentioned we know about security tokens. So all those things are, they are tokens and they are really different from cryptocurrencies like Ether, like Bitcoin, and the likes. So, and then we have different types of blockchain or blockchain companies like Solana, a lot of them like that. So you really need to understand those things too, because your clients will be building on different platforms. They might say they want to work on these kind of tokens. So you really need to understand what they're working on to be able to advise them appropriately. So going back to the initial regulatory reactions to the blockchain or to cryptocurrencies particularly when it came on, there were a lot of ideas that were really some of them didn't even see the light of the day. While some of them, even though they've been built upon to an extent, because of the clampdown, they had to close business. There were lots of them like that. And we still having that effect now. There was a filing that we're trying to make, and the idea is to create a social media on the blockchain, a social media platform on the blockchain. And because you have blockchain in the description of the objects of the company, then it is not registrable. That was the comment I actually got from the CS that the business the company's object is not registrable, and I believe that's because there's blockchain there. I don't think they'll say you can't register a company that wants to operate a social media platform in Nigeria. You can't register that, and I haven't heard of any prerequisites. What's it called now? Some prerequisites that you need to put in place before you can register, because those are before you can register a social media platform, because those are the two major terms in the objects, social media and a blockchain, building it on the blockchain. So we continue to see this effect, and I know it's not their fault. I mean, because everybody knows then that maybe, and that's why I didn't mention crypto. The crypto is actually not crypto. Tokens are actually to be there. You get tokens. There are different ways. I mean, there's a particular, I think Brave uses some of these. They use the idea of tokens to kind of incentivize their users, where you opt to see ads. You understand? There are ways you kind of do this. So, and this is also where, because when I mean, for companies like that wants to do something that's going to be dynamic and going to be transformative for a particular industry, they really need a lawyer. If they want to really go fast, so to say, if they don't want everything to go into I understand, maybe to be rubbish, so to say, or to not fly, or to not be successful at time due to regulatory issues, because there might be some things that you built and then you might not be able to go back and change some things, that some of the mistakes you've made, which can be regulatory wise as well. And maybe due to because you've really built a long way, you've spent a lot, and you can't spend such amount to review such a product, or you're not even sure again if that is going to work. So there might be all the reasons related to that regulatory issue of you not being able to work around some things. A very good example outside blockchain is this that I remember just now, is the Amazon AI system that was built focused on I think applicants for job applicants. So what it does is actually to review resumes, and then kind of sift those resumes to find an applicant that kind of fits that job. But I think most of the data sets that we fit into fed into the AI system to build the model, the AI model, were male resumes, and due to that, the system was biased. The AI system was biased against females, against women. And due to that reason, so they couldn't, because it's difficult. So that's the technical reason. But the reason, it's a technical reason, and it has a regulatory wise an ethical issue, in terms of the outputs. So there's a lot of reasons. I mean, when we look at that they need to, so the technical reason is because they can't really retrain it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to retrain the model to do, to kind of do the right thing that it was supposed to do in the first place. So the same thing for blockchain as well. And you already know that when you've built a smart contract in a particular way, there's no going back. You can't. It's just like an AI system. So I don't know why I always, maybe because I've always been interested in blockchain and now AI. So I always draw these similarities between those two technologies, and it's quite interesting because now I'm thinking that smart contracts, when you build a smart contract, depending on what, even though I mean it's relatively easier to build smart contracts compared to AI systems in terms of how you build this, as a backend, thing. So it's a bit different. So, but of course, the results still are kind of still are related. So the point I'm making is that you really need to understand a lot of these things for you to be able to advise your clients very well. And then you really need to be, and it wasn't the example I used, I mean, for mentees that are listening, I mean, in order for that, so that you won't fall into the same trap. The reason it was a try in the sense that, okay, we have a different environment, a receptive environment to a blockchain now. So let's see what happens. So that's if it was if it was before, because another thing is that, of course, we need to be transparent about these things as well. I mean, the best way to have put it is what I did in terms of saying that it's going to be decentralized and social media platform. I couldn't have said that it's just a social media platform. So that's not, being transparent. So, but that's just one thing that you need to think about. So, and so you need to look at the Finance Act and see how digital assets is taxed, and all the things that you need to look at. I think the other one is just intellectual property, which is quite important in terms of how ownership and copyright works, in terms of how NFTs, NFTs can be. When I say NFTs, it means, of course, what the NFT means in the sense is that it is holding a valuable item, it's holding a valuable asset. It could be a certificate, it could be a musical, I don't want to say, is it music or what? So a musical item, so to say, it could be a landed property. So how does that work? You really need to. So if an individual comes to you as a lawyer and says that he wants to get maybe for further, let me give you that. It's not really silly. It's something that can happen. Hopefully, it happens in the nearest future, where there is a further a landed property is further secured, through on the blockchain, through the use of NFTs, and then they want to ensure that the person, they want to ensure they want to ascertain the rights that the person has. So how will you do that? I mean, how will you approach such a scenario? Are you going to look at the terms of the platform that's NFT is deployed on, or is that is hosting that NFT? Or what are the things that you need to do? What are the necessary issues that you really need to figure out? So so another thing is, so the thing about license, because I mentioned license, I need to talk about that, and then I mentioned ownership and copyright as well. So the reason I mentioned that is because let's talk about licensing first, please. So sometimes you might want to resell some things, but the license might be limited in the sense that when you get that particular item, you might not be able to sell to another person. So it might be restricted to you. So that's one of the things that you need to, consider, or you need to advise, clients and this could be on a very large scale actually. So, I mean, it's been a very long time. I've seen interesting cases regarding this kind of issues when somebody thinks that he has full ownership of an NFT, then if later found out that it is a restricted or a limited right that he has to that particular. So there's a lot of intellectual property issues on the as it relates to NFTs. So I think I'll just stop there. I don't want to take much of the time that I have done already. So if you have any question, I'll be glad to take them.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan, for helping us run through today's topic, NFTs, non-fungible tokens. So please, from our mentees, and we have questions for Mr. Ridwan as regards to this topic. I remember Joy saying that she has a question. So please, Joy, if you want, you can please go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you. I think that question has been partly answered. You mentioned digital assets under the ARIP from the SEC. So I wanted to just confirm, because I studied the rule that was released and I saw that the assets were relating to securities and equity claims. So I wanted to ask if you could shed more light on that, because I had to register. I had to not register, but then apply for it for my company, and I knew that we did not fall under what we were offering, did not fall under securities or debt or equity. But I needed to shed some more light on that.
I also get your point very well. I understand the first part as regards, how the digital assets in the rules, how it relates to securities like equities and debt security. So but I also
Yes.
understand the other parts in terms of what is not really clear as regards how it works.
Okay. For instance, if a company is offering digital assets,
Yeah.
maybe a token.
Yes.
So how do you, aside the securities part, how are you sure that you don't need to register under the SEC rules?
Okay, I think I understand your question better now. That's a very cogent and interesting question. So, just as I mentioned that, and you also reiterated it in the sense that the digital assets is relating to securities. So, and unless maybe I will do more research on those companies, but what I think another thing we also need to understand very well is how the rules works in line, or how it aligns with the platform. I don't know why I'm forgetting the name that we call that such a platform is actually to test run a kind of product. So I'm talking about the ARIP and
Yeah.
we have the IPIR as well. We have two platforms, I think, that's related to blockchain companies. So the
Yeah.
thing is that, yeah, so one thing you need to do is to look at the type of tokens that the company is offering. We have different types of tokens, as I've mentioned, utility tokens, security tokens, and the likes. So how you're going to determine if it's utility or security or or any other thing, or even NFTs, is to look at how it works, how that token operates. So for utility, what it really does is to give access to a particular service or product to somebody that has gotten that utility. So ordinarily, would they get the utility with money? It's just like, especially in games, this can be used in games. It could be maybe a metaverse. It could be an actual game, a digital game where you play on a computer, or a computer-based object, or it could be a game that maybe we have this AR and VR kind of a metaverse companies that I'll just say AR/VR, where you go to and then they give you their VR headsets to kind of interact with different, I don't want to call them toys, but different objects that they have. So what I'm saying is that sometimes they might want to give you coins. So it's just like how coins work actually, and you'll find coins being used in the blockchain space sometimes. So is it crypto coins? But I know they use coins. So what I'm saying is that, so when you pay for those coins, so those coins are going to serve as utilities. So it's the same thing maybe online or maybe for a company. So they're giving you, you've paid for it already, or because you're a member, they will give you those utility tokens for you to be able to have access to specific things. So, but when we talk about securities in the US, and I believe I think that's how it's called across most jurisdictions. I'm aware of it, Nigeria, US, and even the FCA. I think that's the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK. So they look at a three-way rule. They call in the US, they call it the Howey test. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. Howey or Howey, I think HOWEY, which is, I think it's four instead for you know, when a particular concept fits into those four things, then it's acts as a kind of a security token. I mean, as when we're talking about securities in actually securities outside the blockchain. So it's the same thing applies to when you're talking about the blockchain. So when you have a kind of investments, you're investing money in an enterprise, a common enterprise, and with the intention of getting a result of getting what's it called value or profits. So that's if that's definition, or if that's rule fits into what you're doing in terms of you issuing you know, that security or that particular, you know, you telling people that they can come and pay for something, then that's really, it's equates to securities. So what I mean is that if the reason why somebody is giving a company money or giving or paying for tokens is due to that, if that company, you know, satisfies, you know, those rules, then it means that what they are issuing or what the customer is getting from them is actually a security token. So that's going to so meaning that the SEC rule is going to apply to them. It's applicable to them. So they need to register on that if they are issuing security tokens. So it means that it's like, just like you said, it's as simple as if you think that what you're doing is going to equate. Sometimes people might not think so. Yeah, it is possible for you to think that what you're giving is not equity or debt security. But in the real sense, when regulator experts, security experts look at what you're doing in terms of how you are relating the relationship between your customer and the company, and yeah, the outputs of that relationship, then they can actually decide that this falls on that security. So that's why blockchain, I mean, as simple as it might sound, you can't just say that you will make that decision yourself. You need to really take it through that rule to ensure that it's not securities or it's security. So simply is that if what you are offering your customers will serve as equity, in the sense that they are, even if it's not that you're giving them a part of your company stake, as far as they are investing in the company and going to be getting and it's like you fundraising. So as far as it's like that, so it's like you're getting equity from them, and that will require such companies to register with SEC.
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Yeah. So I look forward to, I mean, we can always take this discussion up and discuss further, because I believe there are other points to talk about in terms of how these things work. So I like the fact that you share the same thoughts as me in terms of course, the regulator, they're there to further explain or expand the applicability of the regulation So, I mean, everything I thought, or even as it relates to the only leeway for me was that maybe the virtual asset service provider parts of the aspects of the role is going to is going to make it broader. I mean, in terms of it's going to make it cover some other virtual assets provider, because I mean, if you look at the virtual assets definition in the first place, or how virtual assets is being used, but when you're talking about digital assets and the way it was defined and the way it is being used, and
Yeah.
considering the fact that we're using securities, and considering the fact that we're talking about it's related a bit to tokenization as well, you tokenizing equity on the blockchain. So I was looking at people that want to companies that want to tokenize their their assets, coming to SEC and registering, and that's to tokenize it on the blockchain, coming to SEC to register. Well, let's see how things play out. I mean, it's quite interesting looking that we have cryptocurrency. I think are they not cryptocurrencies exchange companies? I'm not sure. I think I will need to look deeply at it, because I was I know I've read it, but then I've just need to read it again, I think. But it's quite an interesting space if you like. I mean, everybody can. I mean, I like the fact that we have Joy, who is working in a blockchain company. I would really like to take up to kind of continue some conversation with every one of you, including Joy. And so the thing is just that. Also, if you're interested, I think I mentioned this before in one of our classes too. That if you're just interested in securities, it's also, I mean, it's interesting if you can take that interest, or you can extend that interest to blockchain as well. So you can extend it to, I mean, what I mean by that is seeing how the blockchain, affects, capital markets, how it relates to the capital markets, or, to, different types of securities or assets. That's going to be, I mean, it's not until you're interested in technology, so to say, or maybe that will even give the interest in technology generally. So there are lots of things to be done in that area, really. So that's all I can say. I don't know if there are any other questions. Okay, I can see some here. So I think the first one that was dropped is, are there any significant regulatory compliance laws related to NFTs? Yeah, I think I answered this question. I don't know if any, but depending on how the NFT is going to work, that's any law can actually, especially the capital gains tax, in terms of how the finance arts, I believe, describe virtual assets or digital assets, and of course NFTs are going to fall under that as well. And even the way the circles on on issuance of digital assets is kind of going, so it's possible that that might also affect NFTs. But the most important thing is that it actually depends on how the NFTs, how it's going to operate, how it's going to work, underground. So, and you really need to get that from, you really need to, get that explanation from the developers. So lawyers have to work with developers. So, I mean, Joy has told you that already. So then the second one is, blockchain has been rumored to be secure and decentralized. However, is there any scenario where thefts can occur in this decentralized system? Yeah. So that doesn't mean that the blockchain is still not secured in terms of it's being decentralized and it's being a trustless network. And that's why I mean, we have nodes having the same set of transactions, or block of, just as we blockchains of transactions. What I mean by that is chains of transactions, or chains of block that has transactions in them. So you have the same thing, in different places, in different nodes. I mean, millions, if not millions of computers. So that makes it to be difficult to to attack in terms of the infrastructure itself. So of course, we talk about the 51% attack. We still always need to talk about that. But as at now, I mean, a blockchain expert will tell you that I don't think that's even possible. I mean, as it is now in space, how the blockchain has really grown, different blockchains. So, but notwithstanding, I mean, because I mean, the way I'm speaking, you will be asking that, have I not been hearing about the different scams, different fraudulence or activities or issues in terms of thefts and the likes. So yeah, and that's true. And there are different many ways that can actually happen. And but I think starting from the infrastructure, the technology itself, I think we need to talk about bugs, vulnerabilities are there, and they will always be there in terms of gaps, technical gaps, let me call it that, that can still be found in those technologies, especially smart contracts. So we have smart contracts bugs, and there's that issue of you not being able to after you've deployed a smart contract, and that's because of the nature of the blockchain. When you've deployed the smart contracts in the blockchain, you can't change it again. So it's just the general feature of the blockchain. So that bug is still going to be unless you deploy another one, and there are a lot of technical issues to that. So when you have smart contracts bugs, of course you can still have you can have a kind of attack, or that will lead to theft, or that would lead to theft, or a kind of vulnerability that a cyber attacker can make use of, So, and another thing is, of course, we still have the general cybersecurity issues there. Somebody can hack into your system and get your what's it called? Your public keys. That's not public keys, of course. That'll be your private keys. So which you use in accessing your wallets or the blockchain essentially. So, or it could even be from the company itself. Maybe they have some security gaps. You understand, some vulnerabilities in their systems or in the company generally. So, cyber attackers could also make use of that gap, of that vulnerability to access their systems. So these are ways that that's going to happen, and we have different ways of securing your wallet as well. Your wallets give you access to the assets. It gives you access to the assets you have on the blockchain. So if that access is not well secured, then you could have cyber attackers gaining access to attacking or getting unauthorized access to your systems, and getting accessing your wallet or your asset that you have on the blockchain. So there are many ways that thefts can actually happen, and that's why we always see those things. But most of them, especially those big ones, are because there are cybersecurity. I want to remember them, but of course, we can still use that as well. I mean, cybersecurity gaps in the systems, in the networks, or data, or networks of the company. Maybe the custodian holding digital assets on behalf of people or companies and things like that. So, and then of course we have issues with the companies themselves, or we can even have a scam company, an unreal company, coming up to we've had a lot of these news. So the different ways are, but of course things are, I mean, it's getting better day by day. I mean, it's not as it used to be in the past. So we get better every day, just like humans as well. So I think I've answered those questions. I'm not sure if we have any other question. I know the time is fast spent, so over to you, Dennis.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much for your time and everything that you have shared with us today. And thank you to the mentees that have been on this call. Well done for your patience and for your commitment and consistency. So we kindly encourage you to follow up on what Mr. Ridwan has said. Do your research. The system or this place, the NFT space, is an evolving space. So there's always something new in this space. So kindly do well to research, to ensure that you are getting better and that your hunger and your desire to grow and learn is consistent and is continuous. So thank you also once again, Mr. Ridwan, for your time, for your energy, and for your commitment to the program itself. We sincerely do appreciate. We've come to the end of today's session. We look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, everyone, and good night.
Good night, everyone.